want to say no to pure Michigan. The time is now to take this to the Senate and to the House and make it happen for your future, for your children's future, and our grandchildren, which I have to go on record and say don't have any. So we have to be motivated as a party to go out and vote. Don't stay home on your couch. Get out and do your part. Change the way you vote and elect a fighter who's going to stand up to the Democrats and say, not today.
Thank you very much. Tom Leonard.
Well, is it on? There you go. Thank you for starting off with that particular question, because many have asked me and Janelle, why are we doing this? And I say we because it's a team effort. And the bottom line is this: there are 3 reasons right here on this palm card that's on that table. Hannah, Thomas, and Danny. That's our 9-year-old, our 6-year-old, and our 1-year-old. And when you look at the state of the state right now, 49 out of 50 for unemployment, bottom 10 for income growth, but as was mentioned, the first 2 decades of this century, 49 out of 50. In the first 2 decades of this century, the only state we beat for population growth, West Virginia. And frankly, like many of you, our biggest fear is that one day our little girl or our little boy is going to come to us and say, Dad, Mom, we'd love to stay here in the greatest state in the entire country, but unfortunately, we have to leave for better opportunity. What do we have to do? First and foremost, we need to make Michigan a right-to-work state again. When right-to-work was repealed a couple years ago, we were 36 out of 50. Not good enough, but it's a lot better than the 49 out of 50 we are now. We were actually at the national average for unemployment. Now we are 1.4% higher. Bring back right-to-work. Eliminate the income tax. 6 of the top 10 growth states in this country right now have no income tax at all, or a substantially lower income tax than us. It works. But you know what? We also got to address this broken education system. 75% of our 4th graders in this state cannot read at a proficient level. As a former prosecutor, I'm here to tell you right now, if a kid has to drop out of school because they were illiterate, you've created a pipeline to a welfare check or a prison cell. No business is going to want to expand here, and no business is going to want to move here if they have an illiterate working base. We've got to address this reading crisis.
Thank you so much. In a related question, it's somewhat of a follow-up. We'll begin with Eric Nesbitt again in the same order that we just went through. No,
Sorry.
we're not going to do that.
Oh, we're not.
No, wait, no, I'm listening to
I was
you.
going to say, if the new questions start, we start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been corrected. We will begin with Mike Cox on this question. Mike Cox. 4th graders in the state of Michigan are some of the lowest performers in the country on national tests. It's not a surprise anymore. It keeps getting worse year by year. What policies should Michigan implement to change this trajectory?
Well, thank you, Tom. And thank you, Jessica. For those of you who don't know, if you hear the Christmas bell signs, that's Jessica over there to keep us on time. How do we fix 3rd and 4th grade reading, Tom? Again, we don't have to be the most original. We can follow the states that are actually doing it the right way, right? So if you look at NAEP, if you Google NAEP, N-A-E-P, you're going to see that 4th grade reading in Michigan, only 2 states are lower than us. New Mexico and Alaska. And at the flip side of that is, where my granddaughters go to school in Hernando, Mississippi, you'll find that Mississippi just 11 years ago was in the bottom 10, and they are now in the top 20. Is the answer money? Well, we have the 5th highest spend by a state in the country. We spend $21 billion every year. And our outcomes are in the bottom 5. So it's not really money. What it is intuitively, we probably get it. It's a lot of conservative, freedom-oriented ideas. What did Mississippi do? And what would I do as governor working with you all in the House and Senate? Number 1, on day 1, January 1, I would issue an executive order opting Michigan into President Trump's school choice tax credit. Number 2, I would push for greater school choice. And I mean that public-private homeschool. Number 3, I would require all K through 3rd grade teachers, which Mississippi did, to learn phonics and teach it the same way. Number 4, I would grade at every school. Number 5, I would fire any superintendent who didn't do the job. We need standards and we need conservative values. That's what makes a difference. When I was Attorney General, I got things done. As your governor, I'll do the same thing and recreate a Michigan where our children get what Mississippi children get.
Thank you so much. Time is
Thank
up.
you.
Mike Cox, thank you so much. Carla Wagner, same question to you. 4th grade reading national test is some of the worst in the country. What would you do to change that?
I think if we're addressing 4th grade, because I think our kids can't read at 8th grade or 12th grade either, if I'm correct. So it really has to go back to the fundamentals, and I think it's going to do a major overhaul of the Michigan Education Association and what they are teaching our kids right now. The crap that they're learning, they can't move forward. Some of them don't qualify for college. I can't, as a small business owner, I cannot hire these kids that are coming out of high school. So at the 4th grade level, I'm not sure if we passed a law at one point that said if they can't read at 4th grade, we still have to shove them forward. I don't think that we need to do that. I think that maybe the teachers need to be graded on how well the kids do. Maybe the schools need to be graded on how well the kids do. We absolutely have to make it easier for people to homeschool their kids, send them to Christian school, anything else that we can do to help these kids educate. But it's going to be we have to almost go backwards to build that foundation in order to be able to go forward, because we can't really just start from where we are now. But I think it's going back to the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and doing everything that we can to make sure that all schools are following the same criteria.
Carla Wagner, thank you so much. We pose the same question to Ralph Rebent. Ralph Rebent, your turn.
Thank you. There are, that has a lot of different dimensions to it, the question does, because we could talk about public schools, Christian schools, and home schools. And I would suggest to you that in my travels across Michigan, there have been homeschool kids that just outshine everybody's other kids that I know. And I've also seen Christian school kids rank 1580 on the SATs. The issue is not the information, the issue is much deeper than that, right? I do agree that we need to change the programs, but in order to do that, we need to first of all remove some things. Back in 1990, when I was on Governor Engler's Sex, Drugs, and AIDS Advisory Board as a pastor, they require that. They still do until, as Gina Johnson mentioned, the Board of Education was trying to remove that. But the whole point of what I'm sharing is that the public school back then on that board was asking, how can we implement all of these new policies and all these new things that they want us to teach? The teachers that were on this board said, we don't have time to teach what we are skilled to teach. They keep putting all this extra indoctrination in. And so we are looking to remove that indoctrination from the program. In fact, I would say this, folks. This is going to sound pretty radical. I know some of you probably say, I don't know how to teach my kid trigonometry. But you know what? You can teach your kids sex ed. I'm not sure we need to have that in the public school system. I would recommend that we remove that so that parents can have time to share about those important things, as well as teachers having time to do what they really need to teach. So that's what I would do. I would also encourage hooked on phonics as well, but it's much deeper than just the things we've addressed in 2 minutes.
Ralph Rebent, thank you so much. Same question being posed to Anthony Hudson. Mr. Hudson.
Thank you. Ralph, that's not radical. That's common sense. All right? So I'm actually the radical one here, because we have 539 school districts in the state of Michigan. I actually propose we cut that down to 83. One county school district for all the schools in that county. By doing this, we get rid of the bureaucracy, we get rid of all the overpaid administrators, and we can funnel that money right back into that school district or that county. The curriculum has got to change. No more indoctrinating our kids. Your son can stay your son, your daughter can stay your daughter, and if you have a Furby, they can stay home. We don't allow pets in public schools. So I think we also need to change the way we pay our teachers, because I don't think our teachers care as much as they used to. We work on tenure. They get a raise every year, whether they pass a bunch of kids or they don't. Where's the motivation? Let's go back to merit. DEI has got to DIE, right? We have to get rid of it. We base our pay for our teachers on merit and production. The higher you graduate the kids from one grade to the next, you'll be eligible for a bigger, better salary. We do this in Texas, where I'm originally from, and there's not a single teacher that complains. Also, we need to look at smaller classroom sizes. We consolidate these schools. We can take the teachers from the smaller schools and put them in the bigger schools. Smaller class sizes, 1 teacher, 15 students. Not every kid learns the same, but you have to change the curriculum. Cursive writing, reading, arithmetic, science. China is way ahead of us. Those kids are already learning a second language by 3rd grade. Our kids are good enough to do the same here. Thank you.
Anthony Hudson, thank you. Tom Leonard, same question is posed to you.
Yeah, look no further than the Mississippi Miracle, a state that is poorer than Michigan and spends far less on education than we do. 10 years ago was 49 out of 50 in their 3rd grade reading scores. Now they're top 10. What did they do? The right reforms with the right leadership. First things first, early assessment. Kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, they made certain they identified which kids were struggling. Second, they put targeted support and high-quality tutors into those classrooms. Let me be clear here. We cannot expect any teacher with a classroom of 30 students to make certain that they're all reading at a proficient level. They need help, targeted support. They drew a line in the sand and said, we are no longer going to advance a kid to the 4th grade if they're not proficient. We cannot continue to do that. They also empowered parents in this process, ensured that they had resources, ensured that there was proper communication. Second, merit pay, as was mentioned. I think as a Republican, I'm not afraid to admit this, I believe Michigan ought to have the highest paid teachers in the entire country. But you know what? It should be based on merit, not just because they're there another year. Pay the good ones well, get rid of the bad ones. Preserve and protect school choice. That also means a right to homeschool, which is under attack in this state. Also, you want to talk about school choice? You want to talk about preserving parental choice? It's also the health and safety of their children. Today, we released our 2nd edition of our path forward, our transparent plan for what we want to do to turn this state around. And you know what it calls for today? I think many of you read what happened in the Rockford school system. A child was being transitioned without parental consent, without parental knowledge. This plan calls for Michigan to be the first state that makes it a crime where you go to jail if you transition anybody's child without their knowledge.
John Leonard, thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry. Eric Nesbitt, same question to you as well.
Boy, Governor Whitmer has made it tough for our kids to make it here in Michigan. And believe me, Jocelyn Benson ain't gonna make it any better. She's gonna be worse. I'm gonna stand with President Trump on day 1 as your next governor to make sure all kids have a choice, all parents have a choice, is we have to be able to trust parents. That's number 1. I was in Wayne County a few weeks ago, and there was a parent of a 6th grader, 12-year-old, who was sent down to the office because he wasn't using the they, them pronoun to another boy. This is in a quote-unquote high-performing public school. That needs to end. Thank God for that kid when he showed up at the principal's office saying, well, President Trump just said that there's only 2 sexes. If we're going to teach the ABCs, the 26 letters of the alphabet, we got to get out the DEI, we got to get out the 26 pronouns, period, paragraph. There has to be accountability, there has to be choice. We're going to allow our kids to actually make it here in Michigan. And as you get into high school, we got to bring back the trades. We got to go to competency learning. We got to bring back the trades. My eldest brother may have been a C average student, but boy, he could tear apart a transmission over the weekend and put it back together. There weren't any parts left over. And we've lost a half a generation of kids over the last 25 years because we didn't have shop class, because we didn't have trades. If we're going to follow President Trump's lead to rebuild our infrastructure, rebuild our manufacturing, rebuild our economy, It means we have to provide options to our kids. We gotta allow them to make it in Michigan again.
Eric Nesbitt, thank you so much.
Moving on to another round here. Carla Wagner, the question I have is, how do you feel about organized labor unions, and do you support a right-to-work law? Kind of a twofer right there.
Yes, I do support a right-to-work law. I do not like the raise the wage that was just done. I think unions had their place a long time ago because they did make things better, but it seems to me that unions probably get in the way more than they help. And I think just with the union dues and everything else that people may be forced to pay to be part of those unions, I would like to see the unions go away. We want to instill the right to work. We need to get rid of the raise the wage, and we can go forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reback, same thing. What is your take on unions, and would you support a right-to-work law?
Well, I've been a member of 3 unions in my work history, and I've seen the foolishness of some of them, and yet I've seen the goodness of some of them. I have seen unions historically, many of them were begun by Christian people who wanted their neighbors to be safe when they were working in big steel mills. And so I do see a value in that in terms of safety, in terms of caring for their friends and neighbors. I do think they've become too big. In fact, the teachers union is way too big in this state, and I would, as I have said in the past, the Michigan curriculum here at the Board of Education, the whole program needs to be dismantled and rebuilt. As for repealing or reinstating the right to work, yes, I'm in favor of that because I think we are a people of freedoms. We need to be able to have those freedoms and actually exercise them in the workplace. And so I would be in favor of reinstating right to work. And I also am in favor of repealing the prevailing wage as well, getting rid of that minimum wage.
Thank you very much. Anthony Hudson, organized labor unions and right to work. Would you support right to work law?
I agree.
Okay.
I believe that the unions have a right to organize. You know, I see the good and the bad, just like Ralph said. What I don't like about the unions is they have most of the higher ups, the presidents are Democrats, and they're taking Republican union dues and funneling it into the Democrat policies and ideologies. They're telling Republicans that they should vote Democrat because that's what they believe in. I think it should be more evened out. I think these unions should have Republican leadership within them to support the Republican employees that are in that union. Would I support the law to bring back right to work? I'll help them write it. I don't have a problem with that because that's where the state needs to be. We need to continue to protect our freedom of choice. I don't hear anybody talk about that anymore these days. We have choices in life. There's consequences that come from those choices. But we as individual people in the state of Michigan, we have to make these choices. You can choose to go work for a union if it suits you, or you should have the right to choose a non-union job. We shouldn't force that on anyone because we're not a dictatorship. And as far as I'm concerned, we're all still free citizens of a free nation.
Thank you very much. Tom Leonard, I believe you talked about right to work earlier, but also your take on organized labor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my grandpa was part of a union. My dad was part of a union. Is this working?
I don't think it is.
I can yell out.
You want to borrow?
Right, ready? My grandpa was part of a union. My dad was part of a union at Buick City. That's where both of them worked. I was actually, when I was a prosecutor in Flint, I was part of a union. I have nothing against unions, and I certainly support the ability for people to unionize and organize. But there was one thing that all 3 of us did not have, and that was we did not have a choice to decide whether or not we wanted to join that union. So yes, I certainly support right to work, and let me be clear here. One thing that is not often said, right to work is good for workers and it's good for union members. You think about this for just a moment. If Michigan's not a right to work state and people can be forced to join a union and pay union dues and they have no choice, there is no incentive for that union to work for that employee. You make Michigan a right to work state Every single day, those union bosses have to work on behalf of those